Hey honey, I just got a job offer from Amazon
Oh my god, congratulations!
and I have just rejected it.
What?
So in this video I'm going to reveal the framework I created and tested to pass an interview at Amazon. I will also share my experience from the interview process so you know what you must prepare for. And I'll give you a self-assessment tool that will show you how good you are for the position at Amazon. But first, let me explain how difficult it is to pass the interview at Amazon and why it's critical to prepare for it using this framework that I'm going to share. And I'll put it straight, it was the most challenging hiring process for a leadership position I ever experienced. The interview process is different from many other companies in the world. So the biggest problem is that you can't reuse your experience of previous interviews. So you get a series of interviews, and in my case it was 5 interviews in a row in one day. And different interviewers assess multiple aspects of your experience and talents. And here's the critical moment. They do ask you to follow several specific rules that help them assess your real experience and knowledge. And first of all, they ask you to tell stories about your experience. So the whole interview is mostly behavioral or situational questions. Of course, you can use the common STAR technique, which stands for situation, task, action, and result. However, I recommend a better storytelling technique that I will share in this video as well. Second, each story should include numbers, and these numbers should describe the context of the project, things like number of people, duration, budget, and so on. Third, and it was the hardest part for me, they expect you to talk mostly about your contribution. You see, in most interviews for a PM position, you often talk about the achievements of your whole team, so it sounds like we finished the project, we implemented the product, or we solved the problem. But at Amazon, they want to hear what your specific contribution was to that situation. So, how did you help solve the problem? What did you do to help the team finish on time? And this goes against the traditional approach where a project manager shouldn't take credit for the work of the project team. And on top of that, they ask to provide quantifiable outcomes or results of your efforts. Things like how much money you made or saved for the company, how much did you improve the process, and so on. So now if you put it all together, you must provide a cohesive answer in the form of a story with numbers and with your specific contribution. Here's what I also noticed. Interviewers take a lot of notes, and obviously they share those notes and feedbacks with each other to make a decision on you. That's why it's critical to make your stories captivating and clearly state all the information the interviewer needs to capture. But now I almost hear you thinking, but what kind of stories should I prepare? How can I know what interviewers will ask me? So, unlike many other companies, Amazon doesn't want to catch you off guard. On the contrary, they want you to come prepared. That's why they don't test your project management skills or knowledge of theory directly. Instead, they want you to show how you align with Amazon's leadership principles through your experience. And these Amazon's leadership principles are public knowledge. You can Google them right now. Moreover, recruiters at Amazon will help you prepare for an interview. They will share some tips and tricks, they will give you these leadership principles, and they will guide you on how to prepare the best answers. Nevertheless, you do need time and a structured approach to prepare for an interview. Even with my interview skills, I don't think I would be able to pass an interview without proper preparation. That's why next I'm going to share the proven framework to prepare for an interview at Amazon. So, first of all, you need to understand the leadership principles. You must read and appreciate the way Amazon sees a leadership role. Second, you need to analyze the job description you apply for because Amazon lives and breathes these principles. But interviewers don't test all principles for all roles. So the hiring manager will likely indicate the most important principles in the job description. Next, I recommend that you create a simple spreadsheet, and if you want to use my template, you can get it for free in the description below this video. You will have all these leadership principles at the top, and you can additionally highlight or move around the leadership principles that are critical for the role you apply for. After that, for each of these leadership principles, you will come up with 3 stories from your experience. And these stories should show how you enacted these principles. Ideally, you don't want to repeat the same stories across different leadership principles, but unfortunately, that's a difficult approach, and it requires vast and varied experience. However, you can and should describe one experience from different perspectives. So you can talk about one project from hiring the best perspective, and you can use the same project to describe the learn and be curious principle. Just make sure you don't repeat the same stories to all interviewers in the series, because remember, they do take notes and they share these notes with each other. So it's not a big deal if you repeat 2 or 3 stories across different interviewers, as long as you talk about different aspects of the same story. Alright, to make this process efficient, you must focus on brainstorming only. Just try to recollect as many relevant stories as possible. This small exercise will quickly show you whether you have enough experience and impact to start applying for Amazon project management jobs. But at the same time, I don't want you to be discouraged by this exercise if you don't have enough experience. That's because the positive outcome is that now you know exactly what experience and knowledge gaps you must cover. The next step is to prepare cohesive answers. Telling a compelling and engaging story is the key to success at Amazon's interview. Okay, if you are experienced with the STAR technique, you can use it here, but overall, this technique is not the best storytelling technique. When I think about describing a project manager's experience, I use the following framework. First, set the scene. Problems with numbers. Second, agitate the problem. Serious challenge that appears. Third, plan and implement solution. Here's what I did section. And fourth, describe the outcome with quantifiable results. Okay, now let me explain you how this framework, well, actually works. And by the way, I have a full example here in the same spreadsheet so that you can follow along with this framework. So first we have the scene. Here you want to describe the project using numbers and typical project management terminology. But the secret here is that ideally you want to frame the scene as problematic in itself. That's because nothing great happens on simple projects. The best way to show complexity is to use numbers that show size and duration of the project. Next, you want to agitate the problem. Usually you want to say something and suddenly we discover the problem. As a result, it sounds like a problem on top of a challenging project that you already have. In the next section, you plan and implement a solution to that specific problem. And again, here you talk about your contribution specifically. As a project manager, planning and leadership should be your full responsibility. Of course, you can specify what the project team did to implement your plan, but don't make it the focus of the story. Instead, talk about how you help the team to follow the plan. And here's a pro tip. You should always focus on just one problem. Don't spray your attention on multiple problems in that scenario. Focus on one problem only and one solution to that problem. And now if you look carefully at the leadership principles again, You will also find that you can include additional mentions of some principles. So, for example, invent and simplify, or insist on the highest standards. So, you can include these principles in any success story. So, you can mention some of these as a sideline. The final section is the outcome. In your story, it should sound like which resulted in, or as a result, we achieved blah 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 blah. But it's critical that you mention specific numbers that describe the outcome you achieved, and interviewers will insist that you mention some of these numbers. And by the way, it doesn't mean that you can only use numbers that you officially controlled during the project execution. Likewise, it doesn't mean that you must use official company KPIs here. You can calculate and even come up with these numbers yourself, but make sure that these numbers are relevant for the role that you apply for. And it's also important that you remember the approach to how you calculated those numbers, because interviewers may ask you about it. Likewise, if you want to make these numbers believable, don't round them up. If you calculated 17.7%, keep it. Don't make it 18 or 20. Next, there is one interview question that you must prepare separately, and I didn't mention it, but I answered this question like 8 times during this whole interview series. So yes, it's a critical question that may break all your chances for success. So you must watch this video now to learn how to answer the "Tell me about yourself" question, and you must do it correctly. Click the video now, I'll talk to you there.